All right, everybody, welcome to week 13. This is the moment you've all been waiting for. I'm just kidding. This whole thing has been what you've been waiting for, am I right? So, week 13 is all about the capital S self. And so, what do I mean by capital S self? So, we all have within us a highest, most authentic, favorite, however you want to describe it. But we all have this version of ourselves that is unwounded, fully healed, and crystal clear and available to us at all times. This is the version of ourselves that is meeting with our inner child. This is the version of ourselves that we have been working to get back towards from the beginning. It is the version of ourselves that does not subscribe to paradigms and beliefs, that has pure thoughts and emotions towards ourselves and towards the world around us. It is the one who has crystal clear values and desires and takes action in alignment with those. And it's the version of ourselves that upholds standards and boundaries. And we are here at the self and just simply exists within us. And so there are particular aspects of the self that we have, and I've kind of mentioned them a little bit here and there as we go through. But this week is all about tapping into and really connecting with this version of yourself. So the capital S self, and I'll call it self from here on out, but this self, this version of you it's that inner wild child before she learned that she needed to clip her wings, before she learned that she was too much, too loud, too much energy, before she learned that she needed to dial herself down to fit society's standards. She was operating from herself. She was operating from this energy within that was pure and full of love and full of joy. And so, when I talk about the self, it's really coming back to this core. You may have heard me say that before in some of our meditations and visualizations, but it's coming back to this core aspect of you and a state of consciousness. And so, when you're in this state of consciousness, that is when you heal because you allow safety for yourself, you allow safety for what you're experiencing, and you allow things to be okay. You allow for acceptance to happen. And um, so what the self tends to feel like is, and again, if you think back to when I have you, when we do the meditations of that column of light, where you have the energy center in your root, energy center in your heart, and energy center up at the crown of your head. And you connect those and you create that sense of yourself. You create that sense of your life force energy. That is you tapping into yourself. And so, what the embodied experience of the self feels like is there's an expansion in your chest area. It's not tight, it's not constricting, it's expanding and opening. There's an opening in your heart center. Your body feels lighter. Your head feels less crowded. It feels more clear, more peaceful. Your breathing is smoother and it feels more deep than usual. And your face and body muscles are relaxed. And so when you are in this self, there are actual characteristics and attributes that are part of this self energy. And so again, it is a state of consciousness, it is a state of being. So you can tap into this at any time. And so there are 8 C's in the attributes and 5 P's, or 8 C's in the characteristics and 5 P's in the attributes. So when you are in this state of consciousness of self, you are experiencing compassion, curiosity, calm, clarity, courage, connectedness, confidence, and creativity. And you are also having these attributes of playfulness, presence, patience, perspective, and persistence. And so when you tap into these characteristics and attributes, you make space for the different parts of yourself, the different versions of you, the different wounded aspects of you to be in the presence of all of that. And so when you have this wild child whose wings were clipped and who is roaming the earth, feeling like she's too much, and you put her in the presence of your own self-compassion, curiosity, calm, clarity, courage, connectedness, confidence, and creativity, and you do it from an energy of playfulness, patience, presence, perspective, and persistence, you create the conditions for healing within yourself. Okay. So why is it so important? It's so important because this is how healing happens. When you bring your wounds in front of your healed self, you create the space for the wounds to be visible, for the wounds to be loved, for the wounds to experience a different aspect of you, and you take them out of the judgment that created them and the judgment that keeps them there. So you have more empathy, you have more compassion, you are more open, and there's better communication between the self and the part or the inner child. And so you're not operating from ego inner child where there's judgment and there's fear and there's sometimes combat. You're coming from a space of curiosity and play and wondering what could be and how to heal. And so the more you create that dialogue and the more that you create that interaction with yourself, the more you train yourself to have these interactions and this relationship with yourself. So there are 3 different ways that you can really get to know yourself. One is that it's the absence of parts. So it is the absence of your inner children, of your various parts coming through. It is just you. It is just you with the clarity of thought, the courage, and the compassion. It's also this idea of highest self or spirit coming into you and being a part of you. Maybe you might call it inner wisdom, but it's this inner sense of knowing, inner sense of calm, and inner sense of being. And it has a more spiritual aspect in that realm. And then another way that you might think of it is the undamaged part of you. So it is the part of you that you were before you went out into the world and learned your lessons, before you went out into the world and picked up different learnings that you applied against yourself. And so, what ends up happening is when we get into this capital S self energy, we remember and learn that we are more than our parts. We remember that these are just aspects of ourselves. This is just a wound. This is just something that comes up and is present for me. It is not who I am, but it is something that I can heal. Okay. So today we are going to tap into this self energy and we are going to really harness and hone it. And what I want you to notice is that this whole journey that you've been on, this whole journey of wild child confidence has been from start to finish, unlearning the things that get you out of yourself and bring you back to yourself. And starting from the paradigms and beliefs. So what I want you to do today is a quick reflection on who you were when you started and who you are now. And if you have your notes that you've been taking along the way in your practices, starting from the beginning, I'd really like you to get them and have them in front of you. And what I'd love for you to do is to first go back and take a look at that very first assignment on paradigms and beliefs and just refresh your memory on what you used to believe, what your old worldview was. And then what I want you to do is start thinking about what is your worldview now and really tap into those 8 C's, that I discussed. Really want you to tap into the compassion, curiosity, calm, clarity, courage, creativity, connectedness, and confidence, and really get into that playfulness, patience, presence, perspective, and persistence when you're doing this. So I want you to just think back and really see what were those old paradigms and beliefs, and what would this new self version of you believe? What would this new self version of you take on in the way of beliefs? Okay. I want you to also really look at those old thoughts that used to come up about yourself. What were the old thoughts that you would experience? What were the old ways of thinking that you had about yourself? And how would this self version of you really think? What was the relationship with your emotions? What was the main emotion that you used to experience? And how would this self, this unwounded, healed, undamaged version of you that you have in your core, what emotions would they have? What would they experience? And what would their relationship be with the more difficult emotions? Because one of the biggest things I always teach my clients, and now you're receiving it, is when we have this idea of highest self, we tend to erase the difficult parts of ourselves. And that's not the point of the highest self. The point of the highest self is to embrace all aspects of you. It's to create a godlike energy that allows for the embrace, the acceptance, the embodiment, the engagement, I don't even know, of all the different aspects of you. And so what that does is, and so when we erase all of those parts, we're not acting in our highest self. We're acting in our ideal self, the one that we think we're supposed to be, the one that we have been trying to be, the one that kind of got us to where we are today. And so when you do this exercise, I really, really, really want you to think about, what am I erasing right now? And instead of erasing it, like for me, when I would think of my highest self and go into my ideal self accidentally, I would erase my anger. I would erase my frustration. I would erase, you know, all sorts of different things that I didn't like about myself, instead of imagining a new relationship with them. So instead of erasing my anger when I think of my highest self now, what I do is I really envision what my healthy anger looks like, what my valid anger looks like, what my healthy expression of anger looks like, and how I interact with that and how I hold myself through that. And that's my highest self coming through. So what I really want you to be aware of is, what are the parts that you're starting to erase in yourself that make you think that that's your highest self, and can you identify highest versus ideal self? I think that's really going to be important for you as you go through this exercise. And so then I want you to take a look at your values. And from this self space, I really want you to sit with those values and feel how true they are. Feel how connected you are with them, right? And then run it through with your desires. And really, from this space of self, can you connect with these desires? Can you see the version of you, the highest self version of you that already has all of these desires because they're so rooted in her values? And then I want you to really take stock of the actions. What would this highest self version of you be doing in the way of taking action? How do you see her interacting with these desires? Going out and finding ways to bring them closer because they're there. And then from there, I want you to really see, what are the standards and boundaries that are upheld by this capitalist self version of you? And how does she show up in them? Because she's going to make requests, because those boundaries and standards are the parameters for her to exist and for her to become reality. And so your practice for the next week is to really be in the presence of this highest self, this highest, most true self, and to start to become aware of the nuance between highest self and ideal self. Okay, everyone. As you go through this, I want you to drop any insights, any revelations, any questions, anything at all in the chat. Get the engagement going. Let's get the conversation going, and let's see how many highest selves can show up this week. All right, everybody. I'll see you soon.